Pesticides are frequently analyzed using LC or GC instruments. But labs often struggle with testing polar pesticides on these systems. Have you considered ion chromatography? I'm Detlef, and I'm one of more than 300 Thermo Fisher Scientific scientists worldwide who are here to help you with your methods, your applications, and your instrumentation.
I'm Lena. I'm a chromatography data systems expert.
I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but as you know, anionic polar pesticides are ubiquitous in the environment, especially in agricultural communities and in landscaping.
Some polar pesticides are potential cancer-causing agents, with other health concerns being birth defects, asthma, or chemical hypersensitivity. So let's take a look at some of the ways you might solve challenges you encounter in testing for polar pesticides, and some tips and tricks.
So Lena, why ICMS?
IC systems are plumbed entirely with polyether ether ketone or PEEK tubing and components, meaning the entire flow path is metal-free, which prevents corrosion or contamination from the acid or base mobile phases. Only the Thermo Scientific Dionix ICS 6000 and Integrion RFIC systems offer these advantages to the laboratory, a very simple solution to a complex analysis. Suppressed conductivity is the key to ICMS. As previously mentioned, the electrolytic suppressor desalts the eluent or mobile phase. Conductivity detection enables us to not only check the separation, but also monitor the background, ensuring no salts accidentally enter the mass spectrometer. The added benefit of IC is that there's no derivatization step. ICMS is a technique for the direct detection of polar pesticides. Finally, let's get back to the instrumentation and focus on the mass spec. That's you, Detlef.
High sensitivity of current generation mass spectrometers allows us to achieve the target quantification and identification limits with relatively low injection volumes. Lowering the injection volume reduces the frequency of cleaning required. Both IC triple quadrupole and IC high resolution accurate mass instruments can be used for screening foods for polar pesticides, providing high sensitivity below the maximum residue levels specified by regulatory entities. As I mentioned, polar pesticides often run on LC or GC instruments. But unlike IC, these technologies struggle to analyze certain polar pesticide classes, such as glyphosates. The high polarity of these pesticides means they aren't easily retained on standard reversed phase columns. LC and GC methods also require significant time for sample preparation, and detectors don't always meet the needed detection limits. LC analysis requires derivatization or ion pairing, and matrix effects often affect robustness. Hillick techniques aren't a good alternative. Reproducibility is often a challenge. Hillick has lower column capacity compared to IC and cannot handle very polar pesticides. And GC is unable to analyze non-volatile polar pesticides. Can we solve this, Lena?
Ion chromatography column chemistries provide excellent chromatographic retention and resolution in a wide variety of matrices. High-pressure compatible systems allow for small particle columns to improve resolution of the components. High-capacity columns, such as the Thermo Scientific Dionix IonPack AS19 4-micron column, are essential for the analysis of food extracts containing high concentrations of co-extractives. These co-extractives can interfere with the relationship and interaction between the analytes of interest and the chromatographic resin, thus negatively impacting your chromatography through irreproducible retention times, reduced resolution, and even loss of retention. To achieve separation of the polar pesticides on these columns, highly alkaline eluents, such as potassium hydroxide, must be used. This is made possible by the installation of an electrolytic suppressor to convert potassium hydroxide to water after the column outlet, but before the detector. The conversion of potassium hydroxide to water means that harsh eluents do not enter the mass spectrometer. An advantage of using potassium hydroxide is the fact that gradients generated in situ using an eluent generator cartridge are extremely reproducible.
We talked a lot about ICMS equipment, and we don't want to leave you without giving you a few general ICMS tips and tricks. Type 1 ultra-pure water, 18.2 megaohm, is mandatory and critical for the IC and MS to perform at levels needed. It's inevitable that over time the injection of food extracts will result in contamination of chromatographic columns. Sample cleanup procedures, such as the very popular quick polar pesticides extraction or QPPE method, help reduce column contamination. Yet even with sample cleanup, co-extractives will, over time, cause problems with chromatographic resolution. Guard columns can also help here to keep your analytical column clean. When you do have to clean your column, review your column manual for appropriate cleaning instructions, but never reverse the flow in an IC column. Most mass spectrometers aren't fans of salts. If high levels of salts are introduced into the instrument, sensitivity will drop and the MS will have to be cleaned. When not using the MS, the flow should therefore be diverted to waste to ensure no salt will enter the MS. Thanks for watching Idea Labs. We're quite confident that the ideas and solutions we showed you in this video can work in your lab too. If you agree, visit thermofisher.com/idea to connect, and we'll get you on the road to talking to one of our scientists.